The next section is portfolio. And when I say portfolio, I mean the portfolio management of creativity, just like your finance portfolio. But I didn't want to lose you so quickly because people think finance can sound nerdy. But let me start off with the problems, and I'll explain why finance is the way I like to solve a lot of innovation problems. A typical problem would be, how do I get people to try something new, whether that's a product in market or something you're trying to sell to your teams? Or how do we actually get our company to take a risk? I have a good idea, my team has a good idea, but I can't get senior management buy-in. I can't get people to put money into this. They won't give me marketing dollars to take this to the next level. So how do you do that? I like to use the concept of portfolio management from banking, even though banking sounds boring, because we all get how it works. Your CEO gets how it works. We know the market goes up and down and that we must diversify and think about our stocks in a certain way. And the same works with innovation. In fact, I think that there's no industry that's better at understanding risk versus reward and trying new things, for that matter, than finance. Whether it's stock portfolio management or venture capital, you can learn a lot. So to not take you on too much of a tangent in the finance section of today, I'll just go right into some workshop questions and tactics that hopefully will provoke you to think about innovation or sell your creative ideas differently. The first would be, very simply, if you stopped and paused and thought about it with yourself or with your team, what are all the things you think you could learn about innovation and creativity, and even how to manage your own time, from the way that you and others manage investments? What are currently your safe bets versus your long-term plays? And knowing that, how might you treat your long-term plays a little differently to allow them to have increased risk? How might you allocate your own time or money to be more diversified? And tactically, here's some ways to think about that. When it comes to diversifying your creativity and your innovation, a couple key rules. You want to try and have multiple bets going on any given time. Some of your bets can be exploring high-level deep dives into all different categories, and you want to have a conscious mixture of what you believe are your high-risk ideas versus low. And if you find in a time of chaos like right now that your team is too focused on low-risk ideas, you're going to miss the way the world shifts when we emerge out of this current period and get into the next. So consciously check your balance. Control the size of your bet. There's an example from the early days of Disney where Eisner took over and had one of the most tremendous CEO sort of track records of financial performance. And part of how he did it was he said he liked for his teams to innovate inside the box. And to him, what that meant is they would look and micromanage to the detail of an exact 5-minute clip in a movie, and they'd say, I know the budget for this part's $3 million. How about you do it for $100,000? And that would cause teams to have to totally rework their whole process, but come up with something interesting and brilliant. His example I saw him talk about was the movie Outrageous Fortunes. And in that movie, if you remember it, Shelley Long goes back to her parents to beg for money. The script said they have a beautiful New York apartment and they're very wealthy. That would mean you need a set that is a high-end place and actors and all sorts of stuff. Instead, they had to do this whole thing not with millions of dollars, but with like 100,000. So the solution made for better magic. Shelley Long shows up to her parents, tries to buzz up to the apartment, and they don't let her in. Instead, on the end of the buzzer, they go, no, we can't let you in because you're just going to ask for more money. And as she's trying to beg for her mom and dad to give her money, an envelope falls from the air. And sure enough, one of the parents with a softer heart had given her the check with more money. Wow, magic. Okay, next up. Find ways to create artificial constraints. This is kind of similar to the last one, but at Capital One, we had tests every month. And I remember looking at our performance in a couple months, and my team's budget for testing would be about $3 or $4 million a month in terms of how much was being spent on marketing and products per month. That's huge. And one month, I looked at the results and thought, wow, we're paying $1,000 on some of these bad tests per new customer. If you do the math, That's terrible. How do we do it better? If you pay me $1,000, I will go knock on people's doors and get the signups myself. And so we made a new project for the next month where we had all the same people working on it, our full staff of people, but instead of working for the normal $4 million budget, we were going to see what we could do if we only had $100,000 or $200,000. And what that did is it forced us to be a lot more conscientious of how we would use money. And that focus caused us to come up with a new idea, which was a referral program. How about we access the clients we already have and see if they're interested in referring a friend? Sure enough, it worked, but we wouldn't have even tried it before because when the budgets were big, we didn't have any constraint to allow us to focus and look for new things. Next up, stay strong after a snake bite. A snake bite is a concept from the world of gambling that in financial management means when you have a big loss, it's like a snake bit you and you become overly conservative on your next bet. And maybe you've thought of that in gambling or maybe in the stock market. You have a big loss and all of a sudden your idea is that you should pull all your money out of the market. But we know statistically, in finance especially, that if you do that, you'll miss out on the upswing. And so the encouragement for yourself and your teams is to say, hey, in a crisis, we just had a snake bite. This is really big. But let's not lose perspective of the fact that people still like our products. People still like our services. And once we emerge, we just need to see what their new needs are. Stay strong after a snake bite. And last, the opposite of that is not to play with house's money. House's money is also a gambling term that extends into finance, which means once we have a really big win as a human, at a casino let's say, our tendency is to want to put all that money in to the next bet. We think our good times are going to last forever. And then we get reminded that they don't. So when you have one product that wins, don't let that stop your testing and your exploration of other markets. Finally, a fun little quote I've once heard about investing that I always find very inspirational when you think of innovation. Pull weeds, not roses. Think about your garden. You don't want weeds there. But what happens in innovation and in a company is we have sunk costs and our egos in it. And Johnny or Jane worked on that project for a year. We need to make sure that they still are looked after. No, we need to keep on moving and let's pull the products that aren't working, host a project funeral, celebrate the success, and we move on. And that wraps up our module. See you in the next lesson.